Welcome back to Paul's Tech News, as I meticulously comb through PC hardware-related stories each week to choose the best ones to present to y'all. Occasionally, a theme surfaces, as was definitely the case this week, and that theme was bad timing. Because on the very eve of Black Friday, which now consumes basically the entire month of November per the ads I've been seeing, and which should be just about the best time to buy PC hardware, prices are going the wrong way. Up instead of down, with memory in particular adding a solid $100 or more to the price of any PC that needs a 32GB DDR5 kit installed just in the past month or so. It was also bad timing for anyone to recently recommend that buyers wait until Q1 2026 for RTX 50 Super GPUs to launch, as those now seem likely to have their launch pushed back, if not cancelled. And at this point, it's safe to say that the question, when should I build a PC in 2025, has been answered. And that answer is a couple months ago, probably late August or September, when GPU pricing had settled down, but RAM hadn't yet become so volatile. But there's good news this week too, from unlikely places, and as my beer supply has also been restocked, I can say cheers to you all, and on with the tech news.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Corsair Xeneon Edge 14.5-inch LCD touchscreen, a 2560 by 720 resolution 60Hz panel designed to attach to your monitor, mount to your PC case, or to be front and center in your setup with the detachable magnetic stand. Connection is easy via HDMI or USB-C with DisplayPort Alt mode support, and the 5-point touchscreen allows you to easily control what's displayed, whether that's system stats via Corsair's iQ software integration, app widgets, a live chat feed while streaming, or just some background music or video playback. Vertical and horizontal orientation are both supported, so for more on the Xeneon Edge touchscreen, click the sponsor link in the video description. Many of us have a love-hate relationship with Nvidia's RTX 50 series GPUs, but the fact is they are what Nvidia is currently manufacturing and stocking, and per market share reports, they are what many gamers have ultimately settled on to power gaming PC builds this year. Never mind the dodgy 12V 2x6 connector, the highly dubious marketing claims they made, or Nvidia's leading role in building the AI house of cards that's overshadowing us all and seems to be teetering precariously. Somewhat ironically, it is all that AI stuff that is once again threatening PC hardware. First, AI came for our GPU allocation, then it came for our memory and storage, and after that, it will return for the GPUs again, but the VRAM this time instead of the GPU chips themselves. More to the point though, the RTX 50 series has been rumored for several months to have a successor incoming, the RTX 50 Super GPUs, of which 3 models have surfaced: a 5080 Super, a 5070 Ti Super, and an RTX 5070 Super, all with 50% more VRAM thanks to using 3GB GDDR7 modules instead of 2GB. While none of these models have been confirmed by Nvidia at all, the rumors came from fairly reliable sources and followed the same cadence as prior Super launches, so some members of the community went so far as to recommend that prospective GPU buyers wait for them to launch, which would supposedly take place in Q1 or early Q2 2026 after a presumed CES announcement in January. But that was before the current trend of the world running out of memory gained momentum, and now it appears that with limited memory on offer, Nvidia would rather put what they do have into products with much higher profit margins, at least if this post Friday from reliable leaker Unico's Hardware is true. The 50 Supers may be cancelled or delayed to Q3 per this update from Megasize GPU, and in the shorter term, even existing cards like the 5060 Ti 16GB may face limited supply, which would inevitably lead to price hikes. That was the fear from the original post by Unico's Hardware, that all current gen RTX 50 series cards might see price hikes as Nvidia uses the supply of VRAM that it is able to obtain for server and workstation GPUs that are way more expensive and therefore make Nvidia way more money, like the 72GB RTX Pro 5000 Blackwell card. So I guess I should continue my GPU price watch series, and eventually all the prices that went down over the course of this year will come back up, and we'll have traveled full circle as we all get to pay more for the same shit in 2026, thanks to AI.
What are you gonna do about it, bro?
Speaking of bad timing and memory, have you checked that your XMP or Expo settings are enabled? And have you thanked your memory kit for being such a good memory kit lately and ensured it has good airflow and, if applicable, a tasteful RGB lighting setup? Because you're going to want to make sure your DDR5 stays alive for the foreseeable future, or DDR4 too for that matter, as the DRAM price apocalypse has worsened even more in the past week, with prices going up faster than gold. And that's saying a lot in our present economy. And while one might assume that since AI data centers use enterprise-class hardware, which is different from consumer DDR5 chips, so consumer prices might not be impacted as much, please also consider that consumer and enterprise memory modules are made by the same memory manufacturers, and just as Nvidia might decide to allocate the majority of their TSMC wafers for AI chip production, so memory makers are focusing on producing high-end RDIMM and HBM chips that are in high demand and provide much better ROI. Global markets are seeing daily price hikes, and while viewers of this channel might focus on the impacts to PC building, there's a broader effect that's causing concern for prices of smartphones and laptops, and NAND shortages for storage devices are cropping up too, with SanDisk reporting that their fabs are at full capacity and they've already booked their entire 2026 inventory and are starting to take orders for 2027 already. Pausing for a drink because this probably isn't the last time you'll be hearing about demand for AI data center build-out negatively impacting us, as the insatiable demand does not seem to be drying up anytime soon. Whether it's memory, storage, GPUs, or beyond that, even the electrical power to run all that hardware, there never seems to be enough for these companies, let alone enough left over for basic consumer needs. But let's add a bit of a silver lining to the gloomy PC hardware weather reports lately, slim though it may be. Unnecessary trade wars do not help those who just want to play some PC games without taking out a personal loan to finance their hardware, but the US and China have been heavily engaged in such activities for some time, and I'll dispense with the details for the sake of brevity. But last week, at the end of October, a tariff truce was brokered, and apparently, as a follow-up on Friday, China has now also suspended the rare earth export controls that have been in place for a little over a month. This is good news for semiconductor manufacturing, broadly speaking, both for near-term manufacturing and the ability for manufacturers who need these materials to stockpile them during the one-year period the ban is supposed to remain lifted, per the Chinese Ministry of Commerce. What is specifically not exempted by these new agreements, though, is Nvidia Blackwell GPUs, which still can't be exported to China per the US government, and it also seems like China doesn't want them anymore anyway. Jensen has recently stated that Nvidia's market share in China has dropped to 0 effectively, and foreign AI chips, including Nvidia, AMD, and Intel, are now banned in state-funded data centers in China as well. This makes Jensen sad, of course, as stock prices have dipped, and it's now been well over a week since Nvidia was valued at $5 trillion. But maybe that was just one of those AI hallucinations. Speaking of seeing things that aren't there, am I naked from the waist down, or is it just time for tech briefs? AMD edition. First, a recap. The past week plus was punctuated by completely unnecessary confusion and chaos surrounding what should have been a banal monthly driver update. It began when people actually read the release notes for AMD Software Adrenalin Edition 25.10.2 and found that it contained outright errors, such as RX 7900 series GPUs suddenly losing USB-C power delivery for some reason, which was walked back Friday. But more egregious was the statement that RDNA 1 and 2 based devices were being put in maintenance mode, which meant no driver optimizations for specific games anymore, just critical security fixes and bug corrections, which was a slap to the face, particularly to those with RDNA 2-based devices like Radeon 6000 series GPUs or APU-powered handhelds like the ROG Xbox Ally Non-X that launched less than a month ago. Despite last Friday's clarification that Linux drivers weren't affected, by Sunday the furor was such that AMD published a blog assuring everyone that the confusion that they caused was unwarranted, because actually they are continuing RDNA 1 and 2 game optimizations, and on Monday, HardwareUnboxed got them to further clarify that that does mean launch support for new games like COD Blops 7 and Resident Evil Requiem. It's unclear how much money AMD would have saved with their original plan to not do that, but as is the case with all bad tech news lately, I suspect the true villain under the mask was AI. Now, AMD might seem somewhat inept on the Radeon side of things lately, but they're clearly winning the CPU race, as further evidenced by Amazon US sales data shared by Tech Epiphany on Thursday. Just 2 CPU SKUs. Notably, their most popular models for PC gaming, the 7800X3D and 9800X3D, sold 16,000 units combined in October, which is 6,000 more units than Intel sold across their entire CPU product stack, which was 10,000, including current gen and all the way back to 12th gen units like the 12700K. Now, this is hopefully humbling for Intel, who needs to dig in and come back with some more compelling offerings next year, but given the performance and power draw of AMD's X3D CPUs, it's understandable that many PC builders went that route. But are AMD's X3D CPUs actually in trouble? You may have been led to believe that this week due to some casually sensational reports regarding a lawsuit filed by IDEA, specifically because they say they hold 10 patents that AMD infringed on with their X3D designs. But if you've never heard of IDEA before, no one would blame you because they don't actually make anything. They just hold on to IP licenses and sue companies they say infringe on them, which in my personal opinion sounds like some pretty trollish activity with regard to patents. It's an unfortunately common occurrence in the world of technology, but I wouldn't be too concerned by hyperbolic reports that this means AMD's X3D processors will stop being produced or anything like that. It will probably result in a settlement or a similar solution, and AMD hasn't even bothered to comment on the situation yet. But for future reference, if you ever feel like engaging in patent troll-like activities, I would advise against it. Seems like a bad idea. See what I did? Okay, let's round today's show out with some helpful advice for those struggling to get their PC builds to fit within budget given the memory price hikes of late. The bros over at HardwareUnboxed published this video Thursday, and while it doesn't lower DDR5 prices, it does contain an assessment of no less than 47 B850 motherboards, which is the chipset you'd want to go with if you're building on AM5 and you want to keep prices reasonable. I highly recommend checking out the whole thing, but highlights are: ASRock boards provide good value, but are tough to trust if you're planning to use an X3D CPU now or in the future. For about $160, good choices are the Gigabyte B850 Gaming X Wi-Fi 6E or MSI B850M-A Wi-Fi. For a few more features, the MSI B850 Tomahawk Max Wi-Fi is about $210. The Gigabyte B850 Aorus Elite Wi-Fi 7 Ice makes a great micro ATX choice in white for $180-ish, and avoid more expensive $250 to $300 plus B850 boards because you can get an X870E board at that price or a little bit more instead. Oh, and thanks, Steve, amidst your many boxes of motherboards, for your continued commitment to these kinds of videos. I raise my drink to you, sir. But there you have it, guys, tech news for the week, and if you liked it, click that like button and leave me a comment down below. While you're down there, all of the articles I talked about today are linked in the video's description if you're interested, and you can check out my store at paulshardware.net for high-quality merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, beer sets, and more. Subscribing to my channel is always a good call too. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you next week.